We started really late, so I'm going to talk very, very little. And as I feel like my job as moderator is to make sure that everybody gets a chance to talk and that we get as many questions from the audience as possible. And that's basically it. So I just wanted to frame it a little bit for all of us. If you go online, I went online the other day and I looked up in Wikipedia, the online encyclopedia for the people, by the people. I looked up the swing resurgence, and there are a couple of sort of standard stories about the Californians coming to looking for Al Minns and the Swedes coming from Europe to look for Frankie Manning, and that's how swing got started again in the 80s. And those stories are true, and I encourage you to go look at them on the web. They're very easy to find. But the story of swing sort of coming back into popularity is actually much more complicated and has many more players and many more stories behind it. And that's the idea behind this panel, that everybody here has had some role in all of that. And if we had 4 days, we could probably tell 4 days worth of stories, but we only have an hour. So I've asked each of the panelists to take 4 or 5 minutes, and I'm going to try and be kind of strict about that, you guys. So I'm going to try and give you a 4-minute heads up. You don't have to use your whole 4 minutes, or your whole 5 minutes, but I'm going to give you a 4-minute warning, and then you can wrap it up. Just to tell a story or two from their own experience, so that we can start adding to the big story about how swing came back into popularity. So. Are you all ready? Are you guys ready? Yes. On your mat? Right. We're going to go in alphabetical order by first name. You have a little bio about everybody in your program, so I'm not going to go through that either. And folks can add for themselves whatever other information they'd like to be sure you have. And we're going to start with Katrine.
I'm supposed to tell everything what happened in 4 minutes? Okay. One thing. Wow, there's so many things. Okay, so first of all, I want to say hello and very welcome and nice to see you all here. I'm from Sweden, so please excuse my Swinglish sometimes. If you don't understand what I'm saying, feel free to scream. There are many stories, but I was quite young when we started this. I started swing dancing in 1979. I know you can't tell, but I was very young. So I started with Jitterbug, and 1981 I met Lennart Westerlund, and some of you have heard of him, Lennart Westerlund. And he and I started dancing together, Jitterbug. And a couple of years later, Anders, our friend from Sweden too, found this old movie. I believe it was Day at the Races. And he said, guys, you have to see this movie. This is the real stuff. What we're doing, we have to stop doing this. And he smuggled in the camera and he copied the movie and showed us. And it was impossible, almost impossible to see anything. But it was convincing enough for Lennart and him and another guy to go down to New York. And they decided to find one of the people in the movie. They went to New York, and I do know, Lennart told me this story, that he went to a phone box, literally went to a phone box, found a phone book, and started looking up all Al Minns they could find. There was a few of them. And they didn't find the right Al Minns. They kept calling, couldn't find him. So I believe that when they almost gave up, they went to Harlem. Suddenly they were in the right place at the right time, and they found Al Minns. And they brought him to Sweden 1984, I think. You have to ask Lennart exact dates, because I'm horrible with dates. And anyway, so Al Minns came, and he taught us a lot. We kept him for a week. We interviewed him, we filmed him, and it was amazing how much, he showed us. And he showed us the swing out and Linda Circle, all the basic stuff that we had no clue about because we were jitterbuggers. And then when he, unfortunately, as you know, came back to the States, I don't know if it was the Swedish Air, but he passed away. And there we was again with nobody. And then we had heard about Frankie Manning, and we followed Aaron Stevens and Stephen Mitchell, and we found, contacted Frankie and invited Frankie to Sweden. And he taught us a lot. He taught us the rest of what we know. And we pretty much locked Frankie in. I don't know if some of you have heard about a dance camp called Herräng Dance Camp. And before Herräng Dance Camp existed in the way it does today, we went there and we brought Frankie with us. And it was 6 of us in the Rhythm Hotshots. At this time we had started a dance group called the Rhythm Hotshots, and we started in 1985. And it was me and Leonard, Elin, Eva, and Lina and Anders. And we kept Frankie for a week at Herräng dance camp all by ourselves. And poor Frankie, he had to eat pasta every day. He was complaining a bit actually, but the last night he made us a fish dish, was very nice. Anyway, he showed us everything that, that we just asked him about, all these basic steps and everything, and we filmed as much as we could and just tried to learn it. And then from there on, the way we learned Lindy Hop was by movies, Frankie and Al, and that's the way we learned. And we looked at all these movies and we trained 6 days a week, 3-4 hours every day. We were, quite addicted to this dance. And our goal was to try to do it as well as Frankie. And I don't know if we ever got there, but we started to perform and teach, and that's done. Some of us are still doing that. We're all getting older. So today I'm teaching with Elliot, and I live in San Francisco. And Leonard is still very active with the Rhythm Hotshots, or today they're called Harlem Hotshots. And Ed and Eva just got a baby. They don't dance so much anymore. They still teach in Herräng, but the new generation is carrying on what we once learned. And I think that's the short version. Yeah.
Okay, well, I can say, 4 minutes, huh?
Yeah, you can't read from that.
Okay. It started like that. I'm called a throwaway child. The throwaway child meeting, I started in around 1970. I was at the Inner City Cultural Center. I was doing research on Afro-American dance at the time. And my first teacher, started off as a tap dancer, was Fayard Nicholas. And then from there was Clarence Landry from the Hi-Hatters, worked with Duke Ellington's orchestra. From there was Willie Covan. From there, after that was from the Chocolatiers. From there was Leonard Reed, who showed me production work. Even though they were tap dancers, they would do all these different steps. I call it boogie steps, all kinds of stuff. I said, well, that's not tap. He said, but it's combined. You need to know how to swing. I said, what are you talking about, swing dancing? So you got to get down there and get in the groove. So therefore, they showed me a group called the Rockets. Then there was a gentleman called Jimmy Field, and then Archie Savage came, and he showed me my very first step. And due to 1977, I had my first group, and it was 5 groups. Then it added up to be 18 groups. Then later on, during the 70s, there was a show on the Flip Wilson show and the Richard Pryor show, which I met Norma Miller. Norma said, you have to swing. You need to know how to get into the groove. So I started learning how to get that down. Then after that, I started choreographing. A group came, the World National Run, called the Black Ballet Jazz. We traveled the world 24 times around the world. Worked on it. I do national choreography work there. When I learned the one and only Herräng, Leonard picked me up from there. I have now, in the 80s, I've been doing MTV work, putting swing dancing, or which we would call vernacular jazz dance, into the hip hop. These kids think they got it down, but they don't got nothing down. But you know how, we're showing how that, I'm preserving it out, and I'm keeping it all alive. This is in a nutshell. I'm trying to keep it down. How many, got 2 more minutes?
Yeah, you don't have to talk that fast.
Okay, well, did you say that way? 2, 3, okay. Want me to go back a few years? I got so many stories. Which one do you want to know? The choreography? Go ahead. The performance?
Something about swing.
I'm telling you about swing. Okay, here's the ones for swing. Year was 1980. Here comes the story, okay? I was working with, was the gentleman, not Mikhail Brishnikov, the other famous ballet leader. We were in, Nureyev. Yes, I had to teach him how to swing. And we did a show. And believe it or not, Terry Monahan and his group was there. We were in Scotland, Edinburgh Festival. And if you had never how to teach ballet people how to swing, that's hard. Everything what you call upstairs, I said, you got to break it down, man. We got to break it down. He was teaching our group how to ballet, and I was teaching them how to swing. But we got through it after 2 weeks of rehearsal. It was I wouldn't call it swing, but but you could do the turns right. But as far as a boogie back, and I said, come on. So we had to compromise. We made a combination of swing dancing and ballet together. And we got through the 2 weeks of out there. But I think that was one of the funniest concerts we ever had. It was one of those things. And what else do we have now? What else you want me to talk about? Television work? Okay, my television work. My latest work I just got through did Lackawanna Blues on HBO. And I just got through teaching Halle Berry Their Eyes Are Watching God. We did turn of the century dances. I work with Lance Banachek. Those who don't know who Lance Banachek, we do dances like older dancers from 1905 stuff, and we have to teach her the original slow drag. If you don't know who the slow drag is a variation of stuff that's been all the way down from 1930s to the 50s through the bop area. A lot of people know if you've been in the Afro-American stage or the nightclub or the juke joint, you know this is an example.
So for most people, it's a partner dance.
If they don't want to dance with me, I got my own self. But and that's what juke joint. So this, all I can say is, I was in the 80s. I have done a lot of stuff in swing dancing that's trying to promote it. And main thing is trying to get it in the mainstream of commercial and on motion picture. That's my main goal for that. Okay, anything else? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Darlene Gist, and I had started out tap dancing, actually, and I was studying with Fayette Nicholas in Los Angeles, California, and I moved back to New York, which is my home, and was trying to get into the tap dance world. And I go to this, Honey Coles was giving a showcase at the Cotton Club on 125th Street. So I had my little act together. So while there, I walked in, nobody was there, and there's this one guy sitting there with crutches and one leg, and we just struck up conversation and just started talking. And I did the showcase, so we exchanged numbers, and he says, "That's a nice little act you got. My manager may want to know you." So his manager turned out to be Mama Lou Parks. So he gives me this number, and actually I was thinking it was his number, and Mama Lou answers the phone. And she said, "Come on down, we're at Smalls, and we have a rehearsal on Sundays." So I go down there, and I had no idea what to expect. I thought she was gonna audition me for a tap number in her group. And I go there, and people are flying all over the place and swinging, and I'm like, yeah, this is where I wanna be. And I was inspired by a couple couples there, and actually growing up, we danced as teenagers, but we didn't do it like Lindy. We did, well, we called it fast dancing. So this was like really a more advanced level, super advanced level of fast dancing that I knew, and I wanted to do it. And so I joined the group. I started going to those rehearsals, and I didn't really have a partner at that time. They would partner you off with someone who didn't have a partner. And so I had a partner, and danced with Waco, one of her original dancers, at the Felt Forum at one of the Harvest Moon Balls in 1979, I think it was. And so later on, down the road, I kept going to the rehearsals, and Waco didn't want to dance anymore because he's done all of that, so I had to find a new partner. So one day, with not having a partner, one of these rehearsals, there was this tall, gorgeous guy named Stoney rehearsing with one of the dancers, and for some reason, she didn't want to dance with him, or whatever the case may be. He was dancing too fast, or she was dancing too slow. And I said, I need a partner, I need a partner. And so little did I know who this guy was at the time. And it was Stoney, who was an original Norma Miller dancer. And so one time he gave me a call, and he says, "Norma's trying to get a group together. She got a rehearsal. What you doing?" I said, "Nothing." So I went down to a rehearsal, and the next thing you know, I'm a part of Norma Miller Jazz Dancers. So I'm like in heaven. And this lady is like one of the original Savoy ballroom dancers. And one thing I can say about being with Norma, she pulled everybody out of the woodwork. When Norma came to New York, everybody was dancing. And she brought a lot of the people from the Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, to show us and to shape us up and look at us and tell us off when we're doing it wrong. And I learned quite a bit, needless to say, quite a bit. And it lasted for maybe a couple years because Stoney passed away and Al Mims passed away. But what they left me and a whole lot of other people, I'll never will forget. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Margaret Badachuk. Let's see. Well, I started dancing when I was young. I liked to dance, and I danced with my father a little, who did a really great polka, but he wasn't like professional Ukrainian and foxtrot and waltz, but that was about it. And when I was growing up, people didn't dance, as Larry was saying. So my father was a doctor, and I was brought up to be a doctor, and I was a pre-med student. And then I dropped out of school for a while, and while I was at Mount Holyoke, I saw the Alvin Ailey Company perform, and it really inspired me because I was listening to blues music at the time. So here was like blues and music that I loved being expressed physically. And then I moved to Cambridge, and I saw this conceptual dance piece of a modern dancer. So I decided, well, I'd like to go into modern dance. So I went to Cal Arts and got a degree there in modern dance. And then when I moved back to New York, I didn't really know what to do with a degree in modern dance. So then I went back to, I thought, well, I'll be a physical therapist. So I got into physical therapy school, but then I decided to go back to pre-med. So I was doing that, and while I was doing that, I would walk to NYU past this club called City Limits that had country western dancing every night. And they had big picture windows so you could see in. And it looked like a lot of fun. And when I was at Cal Arts, I used to freestyle dance with people, not knowing exactly what I was doing, but doing Lindy and dancing together. And my ballet teacher would say, "Why don't you dance like that in class?" Because, I could feel good and express myself. And then when I was doing ballet, I guess I wasn't very good. So anyway, I thought it looked like so much fun that I would go in, and I ended up dancing there, country western and Lindy, like every night of the week, except on the weekends, and that's when the people that weren't the hardcore dancers would come. So it would just be weeknights I'd go. And one night, so then they started having swing there. Paul Grecky started teaching swing on Thursdays, Lindy. So at one of the Lindy events, I first saw this man dance who was so smooth, and I'd never seen anything like it in my life. He just was elegant and graceful and rhythmic, and it was George Lloyd. And he was a Savoy dancer, and I don't know how he ended up at City Limits, but he was there dancing, and I asked him to dance, and he said no. And then next time I saw him there, I asked him again, and he said yes, and we just clicked, and we became partners, and then we entered the Harvest Moon Ball 6 months later and won the Harvest Moon Ball together. And I was really happy that he won, because he had entered years before with Sonny, the same time Sonny did, who was representing the Savoy, and Sonny ended up winning. And so George was at first he didn't want to enter, and he was fed up with the whole thing, but he finally decided to do it, and it was really nice that he got to win. And then let's see. So I switched over from pre-med back to dance, and I ended up getting my master's in dance by writing up about the Lindy, of all the things that I was actually involved in doing. And so that's when I came up with my master's thesis and the videotapes where I videoed each of my partners at the time. Because, let's see, I guess I skipped a period there of starting the Swing Dance Society. In the Swing Dance Society, there was really City Limits closed because they were going to put up a parking lot. So they wanted to tear down the building. 1 minute? Okay, so so that closed. So we were going up to Harlem to Small's Paradise once a week. And the Swedes, Anders, Henning, and Leonard came in, and I met them at a dance. And I took them around to things I was doing and everything. And it turns out they had a Swedish swing society already. So we said, why don't we start a swing society? And it were people from like Al Min's class, because actually George and I had came in second in a dance competition and won lessons at Sandra Cameron's. And since George didn't want to take his, they let me use his and gave me a gift, unlimited. So during that time, they asked if I wanted to be trained to teach there, and so I was helping out in Al's class during that time, and met all the people there, and we would go up to Smalls, and then so we all decided that we should form a group of a swing society, so the people who were dancing at city limits and who were going up to Smalls would have a place to go. So we started the Cat Club, and the Cat Club was the New York Swing Dance Society, and that's where like Aaron and Stephen and Ryan and the Driving Lindy Hoppers and Jonathan and Sylvia and everybody met, and it was like a mecca. So running the Swing Dance Society at that time allowed a place where people from out of town could come and meet, of people from around the world. They could meet Frankie and George Lloyd and other people. And I was very fortunate to have all these people as partners and dance with me, because there weren't as many people around, and Frankie would perform with me a lot and rehearse with me in the studio, and George dancing with him. And then the generation before Frankie was Al Legans, who would come into this Cat Club to the Swing Dance Society, and he was great, and he danced really differently. So it was great to be able to dance with all these people, and I got these tap dancers to come in, like Chuck Green and Buster Brown would come and perform for us. So I feel I was so privileged to be able to dance with all these people, and also, I was an understudy in Norma's group, and to get all this input from everybody, and to see these great tap dancers around too, like Honey Coles and people that, we have Joseph Wiggin performing tonight, who's amazing. So things are coming back now, and it's great to see that everybody is getting back into it, and also there's more people are involved, and the young dancers are doing a great job.
I'm Terry Monaghan. I'm from England, so you'll have to excuse my English as well, probably. We do actually get asked that, do you speak English, incidentally. That's as we say often, that's often the case in England. Again, it's, I suppose I have to come back because it's Mamalou Parks for us. I mean, that's how we got started. When the Harvest Moon Ball Association decided not to have any more, to drop the Lindy Hop as a competition category in 1980, Mamalou said that she would not let the Lindy Hop die. And so she turned her Savoy preliminary, and that's, in other words, the preliminary event to select dancers for the Harvest Moon, that had run ever since the Savoy opened, but then she'd kept it going since it closed. She turned that into a standalone event. And as a result, her event caught sort of media interest. British TV crew came over and paid her to restage it at the end of '81. That got broadcast on British TV in '82, which I saw. I thought, and the program had Al Mims in it, and Dancing with Sugar Sullivan, and had the Congaroos, and so we had Frankie, although we didn't know who his name was at that time, so we got a crash course in Lindy pretty swiftly. And the following year, '83, I met a guy called Warren Hayes, and we formed the Jiving Lindy Hoppers. And then, much to our amazement, who should turn up on their doorstep but Mamalou Parks with a company in summer '83 to sort of like follow up on the TV program. So we got our first lessons in Lindy Hop there, and when she came back a year later, we had a company ready to perform with her on stage, which of course included Ryan Francois at that time. Virtually everyone else has gone since then. And within a year after that, we were on stage at the Royal Festival Hall with the Count Basie Orchestra led by Thad Jones. Because what we'd done is decided that we were not going to form swing dance societies or classes or anything like that. we went straight for a performance company. As far as we were concerned, we wanted to do what Whitey's Lindy Hoppers had done and what the Mummaloo Parks companies had done. We wanted to form a company that so inspired people that they say, hey, I want to do that. And that, in fact, sort of launched the swing dance scene in the UK. But the thing is that just to really come back to the connection and how it all worked together, Mummaloo was, got to be said, was fairly secretive. She'd mistrustful of people who did not come from Harlem, and we desperately wanted to just join her and work with her, but that wasn't to be. It was pretty obvious. So we found ourselves running out of ideas. So in '85, I took a bank loan out and I brought some dancers across here, just as a bit of a crazy thing to do, looking back on it. But within a week, we'd found Norma, Frankie, Pepsi Bethel, and we'd heard the sad news that Al Mims was dying when we arrived, so we never saw him. And we very rapidly got things sorted out, and then I also met the committee of the New York Swing Dance Society. We got contact with them, and we learned about the Swedish Swing Society as well, so we got in contact with them. All via, it should be said, Ernie Smith. We should remember him as the great sort of coordinator and informer and the guy who showed everybody the films and all the rest of it. Ernie Smith did so much for everybody. And the following year, I got to, with Bob Crease, I organised the first international gathering of Lindy Hoppers in New York City with Bob, and I did it. And that's, I think, was the one Margaret was referring to, when Steve and Erin came from California, and Bob and Sylvia and Jonathan and so on. There's a video going around about that, which you can still see. It's quite interesting to look back on. And we had the great Eddie Durham down there playing with the Harlem Blues and Jazz Band. I mean, the guy who wrote Jumping at the Woodside and 1 O'Clock Jump. In fact, we're going to do a special mention for him tomorrow. And but more important for us, in a sense, for the Jiving Lindy Hoppers, was that we had 2 days of workshops with Frankie Manning. Second day, that Norma Miller turned up on it and shouted at us till we started getting things right. Some people would question her teaching methods, but I can tell you they're very effective. And the other thing that we did was we had 2 weeks of classes with Pepsi Bethel, which was just fantastic. So, in a nutshell, and I'll round it up with that, Mummaloo just basically introduced us to the basic sort of lexicon of Lindy Hop steps. Frankie and Norma put the relationship of the music and dance together for us, and Pepsi Bethel gave us a history, because of course Pepsi, the thing about him was he'd gone all the way back, researched it back to the cakewalk, and when he did the Come Home to Africa tour in 1969, that's when the Mummaloo Parks dancers and the Copacetics did a whole tour right around North Africa, all the way over the top, down the side and then back across. Unbelievable tour now when you think of what terrible things have been done to Africa since then. You couldn't do that tour these days. They had on it the great Avon Long, and Pepsi studied under Avon Long. He was the model for Sporting Life in Porgy and Bess. Avon Long, of course, had worked, I think he'd worked with or studied closely Williams and Walker right from the beginning of the cakewalk era. So he had all of that history, and all I can just say, it was just magic, the guy was. And you can still see what magical he is on the Spirit Moves. He's on that film. So all that together enabled us to form a company with a vision, and it's been touring ever since. We've done 4 tours of Japan, 2 coast-to-coast tours of America, 3 with the Boston Pops, and of course, thousands of gigs elsewhere.
A big hand for our panelists. You did a great job. Thank you.